What is up? How is it going? We have the one, the only, the tactical leprechaun, Mr. Clovertac himself, in the house with us tonight. And we're going to have a fun chat. Clovertac, you're here.
Yo,
So go ahead and introduce yourself.
hey man, thanks for the invite. Yeah, looking forward to kicking back and having a good time. Um, I don't know, introduce myself. I play around on YouTube, man. What else can I say? Um, to get back into, I guess to take it back a few years, lifelong gun owner, longtime youth shooting sports coach, husband, father, grandfather, brother, uh, son, uncle, nephew. what else? What else fits in there? Cousin,
All the above.
yeah. I mean, I fit all the roles pretty much, except for the tactical operator. I certainly don't fit that role, which makes the whole tactical leprechaun thing even more hilarious. But that's not really how that was meant. And people have to realize tactical in the dimension of the leprechaun. Tactical means something totally different. So just keep that in mind.
No,
Just keep that in mind.
no, so I tell everybody when people are, because I'm relatively short, and I tell everybody I'm just the legal height of a leprechaun. So it kind of works like with, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and here's the weird thing. I mean, my mom and dad are both shorter than me. Um, I think, let's see, one uncle. Let's see. They say I think height comes from your mother's side. I think is what I've heard before. So let's go that route. Mother's side, my aunt is shorter than I am. My grandfather on that side was taller. My grandmother was shorter. My great grandmother and great grandfather on my grandmother's side was both shorter or about the same size. So I'm not, for my family, I'm not short, but apparently compared to everybody else, I am.
no, I get it. I get it wholeheartedly. My best friend is 6'7" or 6'2" and a half, and he used to be 6'3". He got in a car crash, crushed two of his vertebrae, like quarter inch on each or something like that. So now he's like, I'm 6'2" and a half instead of 6'3". I was like, what's the half inch matter? But whatever. And so if him and I go into the store, his normal stride is like two of mine. And I'm like, dude, you got to slow down. I got little legs.
I walk fast anyway. My wife gets on me all the time when we go to town because I walk fast. I just do.
That's
I want to
funny.
get there. I want to get there and get back. Like I'm on a mission. Like let's get this done, right? Um, if if I'm gonna walk slow, I'd rather walk fast, get to where I'm going, and then stand around. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like stand around and talk at that point, right? But let's
yeah.
get there and get back as quick as possible. Um,
No, I get that.
on the high thing, something that's interesting. How old was I? I mean, I was in school when it happened. I was probably 5, 6, I don't know, maybe 7 years old, something like that. And we lived in a trailer. Go figure. Rural East Texas, and we lived in a trailer. But built a house. My mom and dad did, and the whole family built, type thing. But anyway, and I didn't realize until later on that typically you have 8-foot ceilings. Some people go
Mhm.
12 and they go vaulted ceilings and they get crazy, but typically you have 8-foot walls, or whatever, 8-foot ceilings. They were 7. My mom and dad built their house because they were shorter. They built 7-foot ceilings, and when I figured that out, I asked them, and it made sense. I'm like, why in the world? Yeah, I mean, you had to cut the plywood, you had to cut the sheetrock, right? Like it
Yeah,
comes in 8-foot sheets. Why didn't you just nail it up? Go 8 foot, nail it up. And I'm like, you couldn't possibly have saved on that much lumber, right?
yeah,
Offset by the cost of throwing away extra sheetrock and other things. And they were like, oh, that foot difference made it easier to heat and cool. And then I got to thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? That's true. Like, if you don't need that extra overhead, like,
yeah.
why not? I guess.
That's true. I never thought of that. But we're gonna run through the chat real quick and say hi to everybody that's here. We got Ron Wayne, Mike McLean, Hootie Hoo, Uke, Boom Country Hydrographics, one of the best Ceratoders in the Midwest. Contact Boom Country Hydrographics on Instagram if you need any Cerakoting done. We have Misty Wayne, Del Pogue, Eagle Run 2-3, Mr. DK. We got Tex Bullington. I think that's everybody so far. As more people jump in, Ron says you're tactical.
Yeah, no way. No way. Tacti Fud maybe or something. I don't know. Certainly not cool.
Yeah, so after the chat, I'll tell you what the Ron Wayne exclusive rifle is.
Okay.
Remind me to tell you that.
Okay.
You'll be excited over it. I think, possibly. It's going to be a fun rifle to build. I'm not even going to lie and say that I've looked for reamers for it, because I haven't, nor have I looked for a barrel. I've been working on my room that I sent you pictures of.
Right.
It will be finished tomorrow. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I don't talk to a lot of people that have, rooms, panic rooms, hidden rooms, things of that nature, even man caves to speak of or stuff. So, yeah, it's always neat seeing things like that.
Well, so I had to do something.
Right.
Am I going first full circle? I don't understand that question. We got Alex Duke with us. Do I know much about NV Nevada? No, I do not. But so
Nevada,
I had to do something.
Nevada or night vision? I wonder.
I don't know.
I'll
If
say
it's
this,
Nevada.
and if you're talking night vision, yeah, he says night vision out there. So don't leave this chat because you can throw it on later and listen to it. But jump in. I don't remember if it was this week or the last week, but on Ghost Tactical on the Armed Citizens podcast, scroll through till you find it because there's a lot of bloviation in there. But we talked forever about night vision stuff over there. It was a lot of good stuff dropped. So just saying. But we can talk about it here too if we need to, or if we want to.
We got David here and Steve Kelly have both jumped in also. And Uke was talking about the custom made 50 cal with a 10-inch barrel. No, this is going to be like a 22-inch barrel that I'm building in a way smaller caliber. It is going to be in the master caliber, or what I feel is a master caliber. But back to what I was saying. Like, I had to do something about, dude, I've got 5 safes completely full, and they're flowing out.
Yep.
Like, down here in my basement, I've got stuff locked in my ammo locker because it won't fit my gun safes and all this stuff. And
right. And
so,
I don't know if you're like me or whatever, but yeah, I come to the realization that I had the vast majority of my stuff was not even really safe worthy in the respect of, protecting from the elements or fire or anything like that. I'm like, I could just get insurance and, and I would be fine. Just need to, they can be replaced. That stuff can be replaced. There's not anything rare or special or anything like that necessarily.
so I've got 3 that are very rare and very special that will stay in one of my gun safes.
Oh, sure.
But
yeah.
As far as like the rest of it, that room is secure. Like, it's concrete walls.
Yep.
On 3 of the walls, and the one with the door will be studded at 8-inch centers. So
nice.
I mean, and it's got stretch metal that's going on the outside of it on top of aluminum slat walls. So let's be realistic right now. If you can get past the studs, the stretch metal, and the aluminum slat walls,
right,
and my security system. Let's not mention I have a 260-pound Rottweiler.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
let's not mention the dogs. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Right.
And a neighbor that's a police and everything else. So it's like, eh. So Steve Kelly has an interesting question.
Mm.
He's watching Trimmers right now. You can pick one rifle and one pistol. What are you going with?
Are we talking about we could pick one from Tremors or period?
Let's say period.
Man, that's tough. One rifle, one for a pistol. We're talking about Tremors. Man, here's the problem with Tremors is you've seen how many shots, even with the elephant gun, it took, right? So
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's not like you're going to be able to fight the Tremors with any of the rifles or pistols that you pick up. So it would be more a survival thing. With Tremors, I'm trying to think. It's an interesting question when you put it in that. Probably going to have to get to high ground. You're probably going to have to. It'll be more anti-personnel, I would think. Survival slash anti-personnel, right?
Mhm.
Because you would find some rocky high ground of some sort, and you would want to hold that, of course. Um, so I think something, man. What bridges that gap with a rifle and also in a handgun that can also be pretty good at longer range?
308, in my opinion.
Yeah, and
Although it's
a
not,
handgun, I don't know. Yeah,
it doesn't really have the energy factor like how the elephant rifle does. However, you can hit the longer range with it, and it has enough terminal energy up close and personal that I don't know. That's a tough one. And maybe 50 AE for my pistol just in case.
right. Yeah, but well, then you got to tote all that heavy ammo around. That's the other thing about that. A lot of people don't think about that. You go, what if you could only have, you got to bug out, live in the wilderness. You can only have one firearm. You know, and people go with all kind of crazy calibers, and I'm thinking, yeah, you're not counting the weight of ammo gets heavy. You know,
Hmm.
quick.
Absolutely.
So, and especially when you got big honking, you know, calibers.
So back to Alex's question real quick. He said he found a deal on TNVC for PVS 14, D-ball A3, OpScore counterweight helmet, skin, Wilcox J arm, Wilcox mount for 4,500. I am not the person to ask about that. I can't even pretend like I know anything about any of that stuff because I don't.
Yeah, I'm not either. Really, I mean, I recognize some of that stuff, and that looks to my fairly untrained eye like a pretty good deal. Um, I guess it depends on what Alex. My question would be, what is Alex doing with it? Um,
So he does a
you know,
lot of nighttime coyote hunting, and
oh yeah, trash that and go thermal, bro. For 4,500, you can get into some pretty awesome thermal stuff. Like if you're animal hunting, go thermal.
now I don't know if that's his entire purpose for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
if that is, then yeah, go thermal. If you've got some other kind of, world end, society end situation, you just enjoy training like that, night ops type stuff, um, then maybe. Um, but I hear a lot of people that first of all they think thermal is uber super expensive, and it's not anymore. Used to be, and it still can be, depending on how high up the ladder you want to run. But um, the other thing is that they hear night vision, and so night vision has become this catch-all that people hear that so and so is using night vision, and a lot of times they're using thermal. They're just using thermal as their means to see at night, which then makes it night vision, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, when you're talking about the the what do you say that was, the PBS 14?
Yeah, the
Uh,
PBS 14
yeah,
and the
all of
D-Ball
that's
A3.
yeah, all of that's solid. Solid stuff. Yeah, he says out there he's already got a pulsar. Okay, well he's good then. Spend the money, bro. Do
Um,
it. Yeah,
Alex,
doesn't
a
hurt to have
person
both.
that somebody that might be able to help him with that quite a bit more than what I could would be Paramount Tactical Solutions. So I've had them on the show. I don't know if you know who Paramount Tactical Solutions are. Um, but the guy was a special forces for a lot of years or a Green Beret. I can't remember exactly what he was. Um, but he would probably have the most hands-on experience with it out of anybody I know that's on the YouTube spectrum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. It's
well,
important to get, when you're dealing with stuff like that, it's important to get multiple angles, right? And the reason it's important to get multiple angles is I get the military. I totally, mad respect for, active and the veterans out there. But let's be honest, just because you're military or ex-military doesn't mean that you've been exposed to, the wide world of firearms, optics, other things. Um, you know,
I agree with that.
and
Um,
so, not only from the perspective of to know what all of the options available, but to understand all of the different um, case uses, right? The different applications of those. So, um, yeah, it's important to look at it at a bunch of different perspectives, especially when he was talking about the coyote hunting thing. I mean, military perspective is not going to do you much good there.
no, I agree there, but like I said, I'm not 100% for sure what his plan is with it. But Ron said he was in the same issue I was, stuff strewn throughout the house till he built his gun room, and now he's loving the organization. I think I'll love the organization once it's all said and done. Um,
Right, right.
so David Wilcott says he would, going back to the graboids. He said he'd take a 375 Ruger and a 10 millimeter with extreme penetrators. That would be an interesting combo.
And you got to figure out your bait. How are you going to get them above the ground to be able to do anything?
I don't know.
That'd be my next question because you ain't going to shoot through the ground to do it.
Yuka says he'd go 500 nitro, 45 ACP. Um, Alex says he'd probably go a Barrett with Ralphus ammo and a 50 Smith& Wesson. Ron says chainsaw in a sport.
There you go. Tastes like chicken,
um,
man. Probably, most likely.
yes. So DK, my room will be finished tomorrow for the most part. Now there's still some odds and end things that I've got to do because I'm like everybody else. I live on a budget and I don't have $2,500 to order another 120 square feet of aluminum slat walls. So those are going to come as they come, but for the most part, technically, it's going to be functional tomorrow, and I'm going to get as much in there as I can tomorrow. And for my secure door, I went with a solid steel core door with a fiberglass backing, like the new polycarbonate fiberglass doors. Have you seen those, Clover?
Yeah. Yeah.
I went
Yeah.
with one of those, and I'm gonna drill in a deadbolt at the top and at the bottom, on top of also the other. It's gonna have basically three deadbolts on it, and that's
Right.
until my Murphy door finally shows up. That's been on order for over a year.
Right.
Um, so there's that hindrance. Um, David says his is maximum weight ammunition per round per mag. Hmm. Steve Kelly says he'd go with the 416 Chi-Tech and his 454 Casull.
Yeah, 416's tough. I like the 416.
I do too. I love the 416 Chi-Tech. I like the 408 Chi-Tech quite a bit also.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah.
Mike McClune says he'd go with a cattle prod, a machete, and a ball peen hammer.
There you go.
And Alex said he already has the Pulsar XM50 thermal scope.
Yeah, he was saying out there later, I think I've seen that he was talking about his riding on his quad. And yeah, for something like that, night vision, for your movement and stuff, right? In the dark is going to be it's going to be way better than thermal in that situation. For detection and taking shots, I think thermal is superior. But yeah, for moving around, thermal is pretty good. Or,
Here's
or
a
or night vision, I should say, pretty good.
here's an interesting one. DK says he'd go with a 338 Lapua and a 22 long rifle. 338 Lapua for long range, 22 long rifle for me, of course. One in open casket.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're talking about getting in some rocky high ground, and potentially having to survive around there. I mean, we get into the weight of ammo. 22 is a good choice because imagine, a 500 round brick, and then imagine in a situation of survival, right? Imagine how
Mhm.
many meals that translate to, right? Whereas opposed to the same amount of weight in a larger caliber, there's not nearly as many rounds. So
Correct.
uh, a big one like that to handle the graboids, and then something smaller for the survival, aspect of things. Yeah,
So yeah, Alex is saying most of his is for hunting. He's got a four-wheel drive electric golf cart. It's hard to drive looking through a 5x5 thermal scope. I'd imagine. Um, he needs it to drive while blacked out.
yep, yep.
Um, I don't know anything about any of that stuff, Alex. I can't even pretend like I do. David's got an interesting question. Why are pump action rifles not as popular as other actions? And I think a lot of it is cost per pump action rifle compared to a semi-auto or bolt action. And
Yeah.
pump action rifles are fairly newer to the market um, to get around some of the like California bans, the New Jersey bans, the New York bans, Michigan now, in some of those states, Illinois. So I don't know. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, what do you run into with pump action on a rifle? Shotgun, very different animal. What you run into with a rifle is the engineering side and the engineering aspect of it. A lot of times, you run into that with lever actions to an extent as well. That's why you don't see lever actions in every caliber under the sun. Um, and I think those engineering hurdles get even more exaggerated.
Mhm.
And so when that happens, and you've got to initially dump a lot of money into the R&D side, you really got to weigh out the demand on the backside, right? If we spend millions of dollars or whatever it might be in R&D in this, is it going to be popular enough that we can make our money back, plus
Yeah,
some? Because you don't stay in business if there's not a profit, right?
exactly.
And so that's why people want to complain about innovation and, oh, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? And it's like, well, go out there and start a gun company and start building stuff and making stuff and, marketing and making sure you're putting out stuff that's going to sell. And, a few people, even a few hundred people going, oh, yeah, we'll buy it. We'll buy it. Even a few hundred people getting pre orders. Like, when you're talking about dumping huge amounts of money into R&D and other things, that doesn't get your money back. And so,
Oh, exactly. Like,
it's an unfortunate thing. I wished we live in the world where it was really easy. And let's be honest, with 3D printers, especially the metallic 3D printers, with how far CNC machining has come, those costs are getting those barriers to entry, right, to prototype things and play around. Monetarily speaking, have really gone down. So I'm hoping we are moving into an age and a world where if large companies aren't willing to take it on, at least maybe individuals that are good at 3D printing and running CNC machines and other things. Maybe you've got a machinist that cuts a deal with his boss that on the weekend he gets to use the facility or something, and the next greatest design comes from some obscure unknown machinist dude that just spent every weekend for 6 months playing around with things. You never know, and then sells that design to a major company, right? He
Yeah.
he takes on all the R&D, and then sells that design to a major company. I mean, it's entirely possible.
No, I agree. So we got Kurt 24 out there with us. We have Normalizer with us also. Um, Normalizer says he'd take Tannerite and 223. That's an interesting concept right there.
Well, that'd be kind of
Like,
like almost like the bombs that they
mhm,
threw out in the first one. Almost, you could. I don't know. I guess if you could get the tannerite at the same time, I don't know. I don't know how you would do that. There are ways to set off tannerite without shooting it. So I guess you
mhm.
could, if it was essentially on a rope with some type of a pull pin thing that then tripped a 9-volt battery. There's ways to configure that. I guess that if they come up and swallowed it, you could, yank the rope and set it off.
Oh, you said you'd get them out of the ground the same way sandworms would.
Right.
So Eagle Run is very much married to 8.6 Blackout.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
was one of the first people, if not the very first person I know of, that had it on the U of the tubes. And he said he'd take that and a Snickers. Hmm, interesting.
Yeah, I don't know that. Thinking about that, I don't know that my 458 SOCOM and the Snickers wouldn't be a couple of good choices. I don't know if I go Snickers though. Do you go Snickers? I don't know. I don't know if I go
I don't know.
Snickers, Reese's Cup.
Snickers or Reese's?
Yeah, hard to beat
I'm
it.
more of a Reese's person myself. However, a good Snickers goes a long way sometimes,
That's true. That's true. Keep you from turning into a diva. You don't want to be a diva when you're fighting the graboids, probably.
right? Um, so you just saw Mike McClune's comment where he said he'd take the ball peen hammer and stuff like that, and Mike McClune says the ball peen hammer was his long range option. See, I can get behind that.
Hammers,
Um,
hammers come in all sizes. So
that is true. So here's a interesting question that Normalizer has. What do we think will happen with the pistol brace deal?
yeah,
So I've followed it enough to know that if the ATF says anything with the pistol brace has to be registered as a SBR, that's what I'm going to end up having to do. I have my own FFLs. I can't risk that for anything. You know what I mean?
yeah. I don't have any pistol braces. Never have. I've never liked them. I have experienced a couple from like Maxim, where the
Mhm.
freaking brace is as much as the pistol itself. You know. So like, why would I spend that much money? Um, and this has been my own personal take on it. Why would I spend 300-400 bucks on a brace when I can spend 200 bucks and just put on a stock? Um, that's always kind of been my position on that. Now that being said, I know we've got a lot more people into the firearm community and culture and bringing people in every day, and that's a great thing. But realize you're talking to somebody that had NFA items back in the '90s or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a foreign thing to me. It's not anything that I'm scared over or scared about. It's just not anything that I'm terribly worried. I will say, speaking directly to the pistol brace thing, um, a couple things come to mind. the first thing that comes to mind is the change in the forms where you have to send a picture. Like that's sort of unprecedented. I don't know how that's going to go over. I, I don't understand that, right? Um,
Hmm.
so that's one that it's like I don't see how that holds up in with any type of scrutiny with the courts at all. And then you start getting into the 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 form where you're trying to figure out if you've got how many points your thing is and all this other stuff, and that requires a lot of technical expertise and other things. So are they expecting somebody to get the stuff for a pistol and then take it to a gunsmith or somebody that's trained to be able to identify how many points that is? Again, you get into this thing to where it's almost like an entrapment type situation in both of those cases, the pictures
Hmm.
and the forms or the worksheet or whatever they call it. It's almost like an entrapment type thing. So on multiple levels, I don't understand multiple amendments, I should say, to the Constitution. I don't see how it. I don't see how it holds up now. Um, who knows if it'll go through? I mean, if you recall, they first tried it around this time of year,
Hmm.
and it didn't fly well. I mean, it didn't fly good at all. Flew like a one-winged duck, not good at all. And then they come back months later, and they had a lot of pushback, a ton of pushback at that time. Then they 6 months, 8 months, however long it was later, they re-released it, right? And there wasn't nearly as much pushback. There wasn't nearly as many talking heads and other things that were mentioning it or whatever. Um, and so that wasn't a good thing. And of course, all the comment periods expired with the second one, and they decided they were pretty much decided they were going to move forward with it. That being said, over the last few weeks or months, um, I've I've seen quite a few lawyers talking about it, and they're not real sure that it's even going to get implemented.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know how you're going to do it. I mean, you're talking 12 million gun owners now,
yeah,
and out of those 12 million, I'd say 4 to 6 million are brand new gun owners since happened.
yeah,
Um, so
yeah. A few of the lawyers that I've heard talking about it, they claim, and anybody can claim anything, and I understand people have, you know, um, anonymous, sources that they can't divulge, and I hate it when we have to rely on information that way because it'd be nice to know the source, but again, this is not just one, legal analyst, let's just say, but multiples I've heard talking about it. And their thing is that yeah, just because they ran a comment period, just because they drafted the rule change, doesn't mean they're going to implement it. And there's a few out there. I'm not going to say that's the majority of the consensus or anything, but there's definitely a half a dozen or so, easily, that I've heard that makes a really good case. Again, based on supposed connections and contacts and sources they have, that the reason that it's been delayed at this point as long as it has is because they're trying to figure out how to implement it. Like and it may go away because of that. It may just people quit talking about it. It'll go away. It won't even be a thing until, of course, we all know this is the case. And I'm not saying the lawyers talked about this, but until they do figure it out, it'll go away.
yeah,
And then 2 years from now, we'll be talking about pistol brace bans again or whatever. Because here's the thing, and a lot of folks don't realize this. Um, they they need, and by they I mean the elements that want to strip us of our Second Amendment rights, um, and the elements that are pro gun control. Um, they need they need firearms and guns and things in society, right? They have
mhm,
to. The paychecks stop flowing if they get their wishes and they ban all of the guns. How many millions and millions and billions of dollars are spent every year? How many people, feed their families and, fundraise for their political aspirations or whatever the case may be, right? On the gun
mhm.
control cause. So if they get everything they want, or even the vast majority, they basically regulate, legislate, whatever, um, champion themselves out of a job. And I think
Exactly.
that we got to be mindful of that too. That's why we've seen since '94, the AWB of '94, which sunsetted it, of course, in '04. They did not renew it, and since then we've seen a lot of talk about AWB on the federal level. Every couple of years, at least since '04, that goes around. It comes up. The House passes something, blah blah blah, whatever, and it's like you don't realize if they pass an AWB, like, what do they got to campaign on? What do they got to fundraise on? And I'm talking about politicians, right?
Exactly.
It's like
Well,
that's a big thing for them. And if they were to pass that, then those fundraisers, that money they're getting, those people that are dumping that money are not going to keep giving them that money because it's like, oh, okay, well, they've already done it. So we're moving on and we're going to figure out something else.
I agree. So I haven't been following this at all. I'm friends with Reno May,
Yeah,
not Reno May. Um, is this channel Reno May?
there is one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reno. Yeah,
Yeah, Reno May.
out in California. Always
Yeah.
wears his stupid ball cap backwards.
Yeah, that's Reno.
Yeah, that's Reno.
I couldn't remember what his channel was. Um, I he's been talking a lot about this. But he doesn't know what's going to happen yet. Um, we have JLM that's jumped in with us, but I want to address a comment right here.
Yeah.
I know you're from Texas, so I know you've had this. I've had this, and Misty is 100% right. You cannot go wrong with honey and peanut butter.
It's hard to go wrong with honey and anything. I hate to tell you, but
Right?
yeah, yeah.
So my
That's
dad,
that's literally nature's candy. I'm telling you.
so when I was growing up, my dad used to make that stuff when we were kids, and he would heat it up in the microwave and get it hot. And we used to always ask him, "Hey, what are you eating? What are you eating? What are you eating?" And he was like, "Oh, you wouldn't like this." Well, so when we got older, we figured out what it was, and then we couldn't keep peanut butter in the house anymore.
Yeah, I freak people out. I eat peanut butter and onions. So
My weirdest like peanut butter craving, and people are going to call me disgusting for this, but peanut butter on a ham sandwich is like
that's kind of interesting. I have to try that
it's
one day.
good. It's good, dude.
Try that
I
one
love
day.
it.
Yeah, now let me caveat the peanut butter and onions by saying there's a place here in Texas known for their sweet yellow onions, and
Hmm.
specifically those sweet yellow onions. Now, don't get me wrong; they still have a little bit of the heat like an onion does, right? Um, but they're not like a super hot, overwhelming variety or anything like that. But man, yeah, those cut up, mixed up, almost like a chunky. Take some creamy peanut butter, chunk those up, and spread it on a sandwich. It's good stuff.
Grilled peanut butter and jelly. Ron Wayne says. We're
Yeah.
gonna keep talking about food. I'm gonna end up going upstairs and cooking a
I've got I've got a friend, or I had a well, I can still call him a friend. He's still around. I've got a friend that all through school, that was in his lunchbox every freaking day was peanut butter and jelly on toast, basically, which is grilled. I would consider that pretty much the same thing.
Yukikaze says he's gonna try peanut butter and a ham sandwich. I gotta try that now, Bending, you bastard.
What about this? What if you took a slice of ham and you spread peanut butter on the ham and made a roll up? Just rolled it up. Would it be similar?
Well, the bread helps with the tardiness of the ham.
Ah, okay.
Um, I don't know. It's one of those things that I have always eaten since I was a kid.
Well, I wonder if here's another one because I'm just thinking in the idea. I mean, I see people that make these pinwheels and roll ups. What if you took a tortilla and put peanut butter and ham and rolled it up?
That would be pretty good. It should be. Um, Dell, since we're talking about peanut butter now, Dell likes
Right.
syrup on his peanut butter.
There you go.
Um, DK is making a very valid point. The handgun roster. Um, See, I don't know a whole like I don't
I
mean to
hate
sound
that.
jaded when I say this, but I don't much follow any other gun laws other than Kentucky's.
Yep.
In Kentucky, ironically enough, we have some really good gun laws, but then we also have some really strict ones on certain things.
Yeah.
And but a lot of our strictness comes with our concealed carry, with as much power as our concealed carry grants us.
Right.
Um, that's a lot of why they're so strict. Um,
No, I feel you. I'm the same way. I get very and I talked to Jared with Guns and Gadgets. I talked to Reno. Um, but I really get Reno stays in his wheelhouse for the most part, which
mhm.
I like that about him, and I've told him that. Very seldom does he comment on non-California things. Of course, let's be honest, he's got his hands full with California things, right? Um, Jared will often, make commentary stuff on, on Texas, and I've got to call him up and go, bro, what are you doing? Like, and actually give him some insight from a Texan that understands the landscape in Texas, the political makeup, a lot of the other nuanced things that people outside the state, and let's be honest, even a lot of people within the state are not paying attention to, don't understand, and don't know. So knowing that from here, I agree with you. Like I try not to get off into the weeds on other states. Somebody asks me things about other states, I'm like, please defer to somebody in that state. um, Now I may give some suggestions or thoughts or musings based on what some other people from that state have told me, right? Like I may say, for example, California in the roster, you know, um, just thinking of a couple of friends I've got out that way. Calabare's 32 Special, for example, Reno. I've heard this, and this from them on the roster, and I don't like this, and that type of stuff, right? But as far as what they need to do, how they need to approach change, I've got no clue because I don't know. I don't know how things work out there, right?
But
Uh,
that's what I'm saying. Like
yeah,
I know how Kentucky works. I know how Tennessee works because like I'm right on the Kentucky Tennessee border on the west side of Kentucky, and Illinois is an hour and a half from me. Indiana's an hour and a half from me, and where Jenny lives is like 2 hours from me. So like maybe closer to three where Jenny lives. But I'm familiar with all those states because it's not uncommon for us to get somebody from Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, or Tennessee at the shop. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that's not abnormal at all.
I'll tell you what's getting me. Any state with a roster. I'm trying to think other than California. I think there is some other states that have that, but um, it blows my mind how that how that has not been shot down. Even by the Supreme Court 10, 15, 20 years ago. Like, how in the world can you possibly have and such a restrictive roster as that, right? Like, okay, I can get the idea. I'm not saying I agree with it, right? I definitely do not champion it or anything like that. But I can understand the mentality and the workaround with the Constitution and other things with magazine limits, right? Like, okay, I can sort of get that. But to say okay, you can have a Gen 3 Glock 19, but you can't have a Live Free Armory amp, which is essentially a Gen 3 Glock 19, just because it's newer, just because I don't know why, right? Like, I don't understand that. It's essentially the same gun. It's the same size. It's the same weight. It holds the same rounds. If we're talking about a 10-round magazine, it's capable of that. You know, Trigger pull is the same. Like, there's literally no difference in that,
Well,
right?
it's
And it
just
makes
like
no sense.
it's just like ARs. Look at the stuff that is allowed in California, like they're quote unquote featureless um firearms, not with the fin blades. But what's the difference in a featureless and just a standard AR? Because it's still got a retractable or detachable magazine, everything like that, but that's a big no-no. But Eagle Run says, and Gort snuck in here. What's up, Gort?
Good.
Eagle Run says clovertac. He's asking you're in East Texas, and he just saying that he's never ran across your channel.
I'm not surprised one bit. And you're probably better off because you haven't, but just saying.
So DK does live in California. I do know that for a fact. And so does Half Mile Sniper. I don't think Half Mile's in here right now.
There you go.
But he's saying that there has to be micro stamping, which doesn't exist. We all know that. It needs to have chamber indicator with no firing, without a magazine, but yet there are guns on the roster without. Well, I don't think you can ex post facto change the stuff on the roster to, if it's already approved on the roster, I don't think you can null it off the, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure they could.
Like, absolutely.
You know, I mean, if they're pulling all of the shenanigans they're already pulling, like I'm sure they could. That would make sense as to their reasoning why nothing new could go on, I guess, with the micro stamping. But again, I go back to the whole idea of a roster anyway. Like, how is that remotely in any universe constitutional? Like, how?
Well, I mean, ultimately,
I get certain classifications, right? So if they come out, California come out and said you can't have any semi-autos, it's like, now again, I'm not agreeing with that. I'm not saying it holds constitutional muster or anything else, right?
Yeah.
But at least you can make some type of an argument based on firearms used in crime, something, right? You can make some type of argument that way. But to have this hodgepodge mix and match of all types of firearms on a roster, right? And then not add other ones, or it just, none of that makes any sense. But gun control doesn't make any sense anyway. So we're sitting here trying to make sense of something that inherently doesn't make sense.
DK says also for every one new gun that's added, 3 old ones must pardon me. I'm getting tongue twisted. He says also for one new gun added, 3 old ones must be removed. So you have a 1 to 3 ratio. So by the time you added, let's say 15 new ones, ultimately it would wipe out that list, wouldn't it? But here's the weird thing too: the cops are not required to have things on that list. So what happens with their trade-ins? Do they have to be sent out of state, or can you buy it from a gun shop? I don't know. I'm not in California. Like, I cannot answer these questions because I don't know these questions. And then you've got.
I would wager they're sold to a big distributor of some sort, most likely, and go other places. Especially if they're,
David brings up a good point. What's going on in Canada? Now I'm friends with the Ballistically Speaking podcast guys, and they're up in Saskatchewan, Canada, and so I've been listening to a lot of what's going on there, and that's mainly because like they're friends of mine. Like, I want to know what's going on with it and everything. And I feel bad for them. Like, it's getting wild. But they also don't have a Second Amendment. They don't have a constitutional right to firearms like how we do in the United States. That's the great thing about the United States, is we have a constitutional amendment. And unless some crazy thing happens that they rewrite the Constitution, we will always have a Second Amendment Constitution. Now, if they go to change that, we're going to have a problem.
I've contended for a long time, and my contention on this and my assuredness, I don't even know how to word this, but I think it gets more and more solidified as time goes on, especially with the hyper partisan nature and the volatility of politics in this country in general. we were talking about a little bit of this relating to this in the pre-chat. But I've said for a long time, and I'll still stand by this. I don't see anybody even opening up the gates or that door to constitutional amendments to a constitutional convention. And the reason is once you open that door, anything can happen, right? And I just don't see either side willing to take that chance.
I don't either. Um,
I mean, slavery could, in essence, come back. I'm not saying that it will, and I'm certainly not advocating that, right? I'm just saying if you open up that door, anything in that document is up for grabs at that
it's
point.
like Pandora's
Like,
box.
yeah, yeah. And like, I'm not saying the world would ever be crazy enough that slavery would get reinstituted in the United States. In some way, we already have it. It's called welfare. But, you know, yeah, there's too much risk and not enough gain with
Yeah,
when you're talking about a constitutional, convention. And the reason I say that, I go back to what I was saying before about how the politicians need something to point at and complain about to raise money, to campaign, to stay in power. These organizations, whatever the organization, whether it's global warming or whether it's, animal rights or whether it's, gun control, they need problematic things to point to make money, right? Like
exactly.
everybody needs these things in play and really solving the problem. Look at it like the pharmaceutical world. I mean, I think most people agree on that, right? There's no money. There's no money in finding a cure. The money
No,
is treating the symptoms. And so when we're talking about medicine, been this way for a long time, like nobody's trying to cure anything anymore. They're just trying to treat the symptoms. Like, because once they cure it, the money's gone. And it's the same way when we're talking about any type of political or social issue. It works exactly the same way. There's not something there to complain about. If we finally get over that hump and get beyond that, that's going to lose a lot of money for a lot of people. That's going to take a lot of people out of power. And that's two things people aren't willing to give up is their money and their power. Let's be honest.
yeah. Well, so DK was talking about it all comes down to money with the registry. The gun manufacturer must pay for the testing, for this and that in order to get it on the market. That's what it's all about. And I 100% agree with you.
Well,
Um,
the bad thing about that is I know companies personally, have worked with them, know the people inside those companies that have attempted to get things on the registry in California and have went through all of their hoops and complied 100%. And again, the firearm they're trying to get in is not leaps and bounds wildly different than stuff already on the roster. And then after spending all of that money, they don't get in,
yeah.
right? And so that's called racketeering. If nobody gets in, like, I'm sorry, that's what that is.
So I didn't know that this was going on. That certain Leos have been arrested for buying non-roster firearms and then selling them on the California market. I didn't know that that was happening. I thought that that was okay if a Leo bought a non. So I, like I said, I
So they
have no
can
idea.
buy it, but they can't sell it. That's what I'm reading out of that.
Well, that's what I'm reading too. And he says that Reno has some of those too. Hey, there's Half Mile Sniper. He is in California also, along with DK. Um, he's jumping in between here and Hootie Hoo, he says.
Oh, Hootie's
Um,
live too. Wow.
um,
Everybody goes live on Friday night, I guess.
Hootie Hoo, every night at 8 p.m., he has a premiere. Ev-
He does that premiere game. Okay.
um, he has a really fun chat. Have you ever watched Hootie Hoo's channel?
Oh yeah, I've talked to him on multiple occasions and stuff. Yeah.
He's a really, really nice guy. He's helped me out a ton with my channel. Him and Half Mile both have been super supportive of my channel. Ron Wayne has too. Mike McClune, DK, David, Normalizer. You, everybody in here has been just phenomenal with my channel, and it's great. Like seeing, everybody in here. Um, Normalizer, be safe. Normalizer said he's got to go. Patrol is starting soon. Night, you guys. We got Safety Doc in the house with us. What's up, Doc? That's another great channel too, is the Safety Doc channel. Um, he talks about a lot of school safety and things like that. I've been on his channel talking about youth sporting leagues in the school systems. Because when I was
Right.
in high school, I shot on our high school trap team, and we went all the way to nationals.
Right.
Um, so it it's a really good chat. Um, I guess is the best way to put it.
There's way too many chats, way too many channels, and way too little time.
Exactly.
And the dirty secret is if you start your own, which I absolutely 100% for ever since I've turned on a camera, advocating others turn on their camera. Um, but the sad part of that is the more time you spend in front of the camera, the less time you get to spend hanging out and paying attention to what other people do. Unfortunately,
I agree. Um, like I don't know. It's been fun. So DK says going back to the roster thing, it's basically three times the purchase price. For example, Glock Gen 5 can fetch you well over $1,200 non-registered or non-approved list, whatever. That's wild. Could you imagine paying $1,200 for Glock Gen? I don't even like Glock that much.
I
So,
wouldn't pay $100 less than retail right now for one because that's how much I don't like the Gen 5 blocks. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't get it. I mean, there's a lot of great people. There's a lot of good people in California, and I just don't. I don't understand how it's everything over there. Seemingly, again, I'm outside looking in, has gone so far downhill considering all the awesome people I know that are there.
mhm.
Uh, I just don't. I just don't get it.
David says, "Quick, somebody make a social media for gun enthusiasts."
I did that in 2000. Let's see, no, 2012, 10, 8. I don't even remember. I did that and it went absolutely zero. Like here's the problem with that. And I'll tell you what I did at the time. There was all kinds of groups on Facebook as far as farm related groups buying, selling, trading, doing all kinds of stuff. We policed ourselves. We made sure if we had a felon that was in the group, we kicked them out. Just anything and everything we could do, right? If somebody reneged on a deal or did this, we kicked them out. It was a lot of self regulation. Everything was able to be out in the open. And nowadays, it's not that way. Like things are still going on over there on the Facebook, but it's all like behind the scenes, private. It's really sketchy at best. You got to
Mhm.
be really, really careful. And I don't mean from a safety standpoint, but from getting screwed over or whatever.
No, I
And
think that.
so when that happened, I was blessed enough to know a couple of engineers at the time at Facebook, and so we started a group and tried to fight some of that, and that didn't go very well. And so I brought a few investors and other people together, and we figured out that the best way to do this was maybe to have a platform, create a platform independent in each state. Ours was Texas Gun Trader, or ours was East Texas Outdoor Network. I'm sorry, East Texas Outdoor Network, and then um, branch that out into branch that out in multiple states, and then end up connecting them together. Um, and we had at the time like 300,000 members in Texas alone in these gun groups, and we ended up getting about maybe 5,000 over to the platform. And of those 5,000, maybe 100 were regularly active. So
Wow.
whenever I hear we need these alternative platforms, we need this gun only this, or we need this that, it's like it does not work. You have to have like everybody participating. And the reason it don't work is quite honestly the funding aspect of it. Without having everybody on there being able to advertise for all different types of things, from watches to clothes to food to whatever. Um, yeah, it just doesn't work, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, you see it too with um large channels. Like I don't know, a channel over 100,000 where you see that they have 100,000 subs and they're getting 5,000 views. It's like, okay,
Yeah, some of that is, here's the thing. You can't, no matter the size of the channel, you can't compare one creator's content to the next. Um,
correct. I
and
agree.
there are, when you start getting into the YouTube platform specifically, this is where I shine because I can give a lot of insight on what happens and what's going on with this. But the first thing that we got to look at, and this especially is true for the gun tubers, for those that create firearm content, is they're not tailoring their content specific to the policies in order to gain the best favor with the algorithm, right?
Hmm.
And I say algorithms because you're dealing with multiple algorithms and multiple policy. People seem to think that there's just one overlord sitting in a throne at the top of the YouTube tower that dictates everything down, and it doesn't work that way. There's all sorts of moving parts and pieces. It's very complicated, and there's multiple policies and stuff at play. And so you've got to be
Hmm.
aware of all those policies, how to navigate them, and all that stuff to have your best chance for search and discovery and things to be pushing your content out. Um, the second thing is there are people that can blow up and then they shift direction, or they blow up and they don't key in on what blew them up. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you go out, and I'm not paying attention. I don't know how many subs you got. For me, it's irrelevant. But let's say that you bending ballistic, you put a video out tomorrow where you're cooking pizza in a Dutch oven out behind your house, right?
Yeah,
And all of us, for whatever reason, that you're cooking a Christmas pizza, let's say, that goes viral, right?
yeah,
Well, the vast majority of people that come to watch that blew up, that made you viral, that blew your channel up, they could care less about your gun stuff. They came to see you cook a pizza in a Dutch oven. And so
exactly.
unless you continue to keep making videos where you cook pizzas in Dutch ovens, those people are not going to come back. They're eventually going to leave, or they just don't pay any attention at all, right?
I
Um,
agree.
and and people want to conflate subscribers with views, right? Well,
Hmm.
if that channel's got 100,000 subscribers, they should be easily getting 90,000 views of it, video, right? 50,000 views of video. Why? Because they've got that many subscribers, and they're assuming all their subscribers watch. The sad
Hmm.
truth is, only about 12 to 15% on a good video of your subscribers actually watch the video. Far, far, far more people watch your video that are not subscribed than are subscribed. And that's
Oh,
a
I
good
agree.
and that's a good thing because number one, you can't get a subscriber you've already got. So you want your content to be put in front of those people. So that's a good thing. And the second thing is, if your content is getting put in front of, most of your views is coming from, I should say, let me back up. Most of your views is coming from non-subscribed viewers, then that obviously means that YouTube is pushing your content.
Hmm.
Otherwise, those people would never see it, right? So that's a good thing too.
Yeah, I agree. So my channel I just turned 392 subs, and I'm ecstatic over it. Um, so my first big push came from Matt over at CRS Firearms. Um, I don't know if you remember or if you know who Matt at CRS
Oh,
Firearms is.
yeah, I do. I do. We'll talk afterwards about some of the stuff there, but yeah, I do.
So Matt, when he was doing his school at PRS, he finally talked me into starting my own channel, and then all that mess happened. And so, but he gave me my first big push and got me up to, what was it, like 225 subs. And then after that, it's been, I don't want to say 100% on my own because like Hootie Who has shared my videos, and a lot of his chat has come over here from him sharing my videos and being on my stuff, and I'm forever grateful for that. Same with Half Mile Sniper, Ron Wayne. Flying Rich, all those guys that I've been on their channel or they've been on mine. Um, we just, I don't know, like we've all grown together and helped each other's channels out. And that's something that money can't put a value on that because it's like, hey, we're building a
Well,
community all together.
more im-
And
more importantly than money can't put a value on that. Numbers certainly can't put a value on that.
correct.
Um, it it's laughable, and I don't even mind it, regardless of whether it's directed at me or somebody else. When somebody puts a dig on you and they go, and anytime I mention somebody's sub count, I always feel the need to caveat. I don't want you need to be appreciative of every sub that you've got. Getting 100 subs on YouTube is hard. It's hard.
Mhm,
And just to put something in perspective, the channels that have YouTube channels that have 10,000 subscribers or more, just 10,000, right? YouTube channels that have 10,000 subscribers or more are in the top 7% of YouTube channels.
mhm.
Let that sink in for a minute. So if you've got 10,000 subs or more, you're in the top 7%. Think about it this way. What if you were in the top 7% of the NBA? What if you were in the top 7% of any of the whatever Fortune 500 list?
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying? That's
yeah.
huge. That's amazing, right? Any sport in the world or whatever it might be, any field of study, if you're in the top 7%, holy crap, right? But how many people come along and they go, oh, he's only got, 11,000 subs. Oh, they've only got 20,000 subs. Oh, they've only got 40,000 subs, whatever the number might be, right? And they dig on that. And it's like, when people do that, it's like, you really don't understand that. That's first of all, it's obvious you don't understand the size and scope of YouTube. But then, second of all, you don't understand that subs are I don't want to I'm careful when I say this because I don't want to alienate people.
Mhm.
I don't want people to think that I don't appreciate their subs and that they're subs and that they follow, because I do. But subs are worthless except from an engagement style standpoint, right?
Mhm.
And that's where the meaning lies with appreciating the people that are subs. Except from an engagement standpoint, subs are meaningless. Why? Because if you look at YouTube channels, the vast majority of their traffic come from unsubbed people. So they can still
Exactly.
get the views, the vast majority of the views. Money is paid according to as viewed. Therefore, channels can make a living on YouTube theoretically without any subscribers at all. And people get hung up on that subscriber thing. Now,
Well,
it's still great because the subscriber thing, like I said, it's an engagement factor. And that's kind of where everything starts, especially with those that really enjoy your content, right? And they're
mhm.
excited about subscribing and they tell other people, I'm subscribed to so and so, right? And it's a vital cog in the works, so to speak, right? But it's
Yeah,
not the biggest, most important cog in the works when it comes to the ecosystem of YouTube.
exactly. Like Hootie Who says, getting 10 subscribers is hard on YouTube. YouTube is a grind, pulling teeth to get
Yeah.
people to subscribe. And he's 100% right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I will be forever grateful for every channel that has been willing to come on here and have a conversation with me and share my stuff. I do this for fun. Like,
Hmm.
all reality. I do this for fun. At the end of the day, it's for fun for me. Like, I'm an engineer by trade. Like, it, I don't know how to explain it. Um, but I don't know. Like, I'm just grateful for everything that's like, I've had chats here where I've had two people in the live chat, and then like today where I have 20 people in the live chat. And I get excited over two people just as excited as I do over having 20 people and watching this chat just scream through here. I get just as excited about that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sent screenshots on my fishing channel um, to Ron and to Hootie Hoo and Flying Rich and everybody when I've gotten 1,000 views on a short on my fishing channel. I get excited over that stuff because it's like, hey, 1,000 people watch this. This is awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, yeah, even let's take. Would you say there was 15 watching? I mean, the numbers I'm looking at, you can't ever trust. But um,
Yeah, 15 is what it's
so
showing over here now.
imagine this. Imagine you're standing in front of the Rotary Club or whatever, and there's 15 people, and you're giving a speech, right? That's not a
Hmm.
small. That's not a small thing. That's not
Hmm.
you and a couple other guys at a gun counter, right? Like that's significant. And here's the other thing. I've went on live chats before. And if you don't believe me, play around sometime. Hit up your YouTube homepage, switch over to where it says live, and just go through and pick some random stuff that you see, like hundreds or thousands of people in that chat, and go into some
Hmm.
of those, right? Just randomly. You will
Yeah,
find, I promise you, you will find channels doing a live stream that have hundreds of people watching, and the chat doesn't move as fast as yours is out there tonight, right? And so yeah, okay, the views are cool because you're getting paid on the views and blah, 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 blah. But if there's no interaction with people, if people don't give a crap, if they're not giving you your feedback, if you're not able to have a conversation with them, at the end of the day, what's the point, right? And
exactly.
maybe that makes some people happy. Maybe that's enough, right, for them to put out a video or go live and go, oh, I got a whole bunch of views on that, right? But it's like, I want to see people in a live chat back and forth in communication. I want to see comments on my videos. I love it when I get a comment that sparks a conversation and makes it go further, right?
Exactly.
The stupid trolling comments, right? People that just drive by and drop stuff, like you got to ignore that kind of crap, right? Because those people ain't even looking for a conversation. But people that come in and go, "Oh, I seen, so and so happened. I had that same problem, and here's what, I did," and we enter into a conversation. I love that. People come in and they have follow-up questions like, "Hey, maybe you didn't cover something, right?" And you're like, they come in and they go, "Hey, what about this and this and this?" Right? And you help them out in the comments, or people that come in and go, "Hey, I watched this. I was having a problem. I hit YouTube." And let's be honest, the vast majority of people that hit YouTube are looking for information, right? Um, the vast majority that search YouTube, I should say, are looking for information. Vast majority of people that view YouTube are looking for entertainment. And I hate to tell you, gun tubers ain't it, right? They're watching other stuff, not us.
Well, so my
But for
fishing channel,
search, at least what we get on the gun side, people are searching. They're looking for an answer to a question, right? And what I really
exactly.
like is when they hit my video, they watch it and they go, "Hey, you answered my question. Thank you." And I'm like, "Awesome, my pleasure. Glad I was able to help somebody." Right?
Well, exactly. Like, so that is one thing that everybody that has come to my chats that were, I guess, more or less apprehensive in the beginning, I engage my chat. Like, I'll answer questions throughout my chat. So on top of my trade, I'm also a gunsmith. And like when you were talking about innovation earlier and people fussing about, when you were saying people fuss about not enough innovation, this, that, and the third. So I did do you know what the six dasher is?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
I did it.
I don't know every little aspect, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Um, I got told by somebody that you could not put a six dasher in a gas rifle. So what's the one thing you don't tell somebody that has an engineering background? You can't do that. So what did
Well,
I do? I did it. And it's probably one of my favorite rifles I've ever done.
so I don't know if anybody follows Paul Harrell, but you probably do, and you probably should. Paul's been around a long time, and he did a thing one time where he talked about how to spot a fake expert, type thing. I think it was a
Yeah,
series of videos actually, and one of the things you said, it's absolutely true, is you got to be careful of anybody that uses the word never and uses the word always.
exactly.
Because, and I try to stay away from that too, because you got to be real careful. There's always exceptions, and even if there's not exceptions, it's kind of like you're saying. Even if there is currently no such thing and it's never been done, that doesn't mean that you're not going to go out and do it, right? Like so, it's you got to stay away from that type of stuff. Like to be able to say that I don't know in your example to say something like I don't know of a semi-automatic with in 6 millimeter dasher, or I don't understand how that would work. I don't know of anything like that, and I don't even understand how that would work. Much different thing than saying you never can do it or you never could do it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
uh, it's just a much different way to phrase it. I mean, you're conceding that you don't know everything, and let's be honest, there's nobody out there that knows everything.
Correct. I tell everybody I know a little bit about a lot and a lot about a little bit, and that's my story, and I stick to it.
Yeah,
Um,
but even the stuff that you know a lot about, you don't know everything.
no, not at all. Um, but so Ron is giving me a hard time over this comment. Um, I caught some slack in a live stream I was on not too long ago, where somebody was talking about they were a gunsmith and they were pulling parts out of a box and assembling them, and they were gunsmithing. And me being the wonderful, charismatic human being in which I am, told them that was not gunsmithing, that is parts assembly. And so Ron is giving me crap all the time over this.
Yeah, hashtag definitions, right? I mean, what
Yeah.
can you say? I mean,
Well, I guess I've got a different an opinion on it because, like, I cut barrels and I can take a barrel blank and turn it into a gas rifle, or take a blank and make it into a gas rifle barrel. I know how to cut barrel blocks and all that stuff. And I don't know. I guess I can't call somebody that pulls parts out of a box a gunsmith, if that makes sense. In retrospect to the stuff that I know how to do.
I mean, if there's absolutely zero fitting and tweaking involved, right? But I also
Mhm.
think that gunsmithing is more than just the act of doing something to the firearm. It's also knowing the history of the variants and
Mhm.
how they work, the mechanics of them. There's a lot of different aspects, right, to that.
Agreed. Agreed.
Um, so again, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. There's no gunsmith that knows everything.
No.
New gunsmiths. Sadly, I see this a lot. Again, you're talking about a lifelong firearm owner, been around let's say community or whatever you want to call it for many, many times, have met, talked to, had conversations with literally hundreds, if not thousands, of gunsmiths. Um, you know, even before there was the internet, but even at the birth of the internet through forums and chats and other things. I was in gun chat rooms back in the late 90s, Yahoo and
Mhm.
MSN chat rooms with gunsmiths and people, right? Um, and the class of gunsmith today is not the same class of gunsmith back then. But it's the same way with everything. The class of football player today is not the same as the class of football player in the 60s, right?
I
Like
100% agree
it's
with you.
it's evolution of whatever that hobby, whatever that industry, whatever that thing is. You've got evolution of that. You've got the evolution of society. You've got all of these different things going on, and it's not going to be the same, right? In a lot of ways, it has become more. Um, it has become more modular, I guess would be the word,
I
right? Modular, and
I agree.
that's a bad thing for like the gunsmith side, because I see where people that legitimately have the knowledge and are gunsmiths could get called parts changers. Um,
Mhm.
but it's also good because that allows the average person to just be able to pull a couple of screws and do this and go,
I
assuming they
agree.
don't. assuming they don't run into an issue. And here's the thing: when you run into that issue, and I get this in comments and videos all the time. It's like it's time to take it to a gunsmith. Like I don't know what to tell you. I can't explain to you how to fix that yourself. Like I would have to look at that and figure out that okay, I got to file this or stone that or drill this or whatever. And it's probably not a complicated fix. For somebody that knows what they're doing and is able to lay eyes on it. But I can't tell the layman how to do that.
Well, it's all about tolerances too, and understanding tolerances. So, like, one thing that I really specialize in is cutting barrels for bolt action rifles and gas rifles. And that's a lot of the reason because I have a lot of experience with tooling and dies and CNC and lathes and things like that. Like the very hands-on aspect of it. And I can relate to those
Right.
types of numbers and those types of numbers.
Right.
Sorry, I'm getting all tongue twisted tonight. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
when you talk 5 thousandths to somebody, right? Like
Yeah.
the average person ain't got a clue like 5 thousandths. You'll get people that think that's a huge number, and right because it's 5 thousandths, right? And
Mhm.
then you get people that think it's a really really small number, and it is a small number, but in the grand scheme of tolerances and machinery and how that stuff works, that could be way too big of a number. It just
Exactly.
kind of all depends. I'll tell you, you're an engineer, and it's similar to the best gunsmith that I've known personally, been around, worked with, other things, right? I've known a lot of gunsmiths over my years, and maybe they were better gunsmiths than this guy, but I never had the opportunity to experience anything that would show me they were, right?
Mhm.
So I just want to caveat that. But the best one that I currently know um, and ever have, is a machinist by trade. He was
Exactly.
a machinist for like 20 years before he was always a firearm owner. You know what I mean? He always hunted and he always played around with firearms. And after about 20 years of machining and other stuff, he really kind of got into the firearm side of things. And he
Mhm.
had all of that machining stuff to fall back on. This dude can take his lathe mill and build anything you want. And I'm talking about from scratch, you know,
So the two guys are
modifying things, building retro parts. I mean, he is so good. He can take, if you've got a missing ear on a side by side shotgun, he can literally take the other ear. And we're not talking about CNC machinery here. Let's get this
no.
clear. We're not talking about a computer where he scans and analyzes a part and tells the machine to do it. We're talking about he's got an old school lathe and an old school mill that has cranks on it with numbers that show up on a screen. And I can't even explain it correctly. That's how much I understand it, which is very little. But he'll literally put a block of something in that mill, and he's changing tools out on his mill, while he's doing this. And he'll cut this and cut that, and then he'll flip it and cut this and change the thing and cut that. And the next thing you know, he's got an ear that matches the other side perfectly. And he puts it on the shotgun and it's fixed. And you're like,
Exactly.
I don't understand how in the world you just did that, dude. But I absolutely appreciate not only the mechanical knowledge of being able to do that, but also there's a certain amount of artisanship. Is that a word?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah, I think so.
you talk about bricklayers and glass blowers and people that do things like that, right? There's a certain amount of art to that as well, being able to do
Absolutely.
something like that.
Absolutely. Um, it so the two guys that I apprenticed under, um, one was an old school machinist. He was a machinist for 30 years before he ever became a gunsmith, and he's been gunsmithing now for 15 years. And the other guy was a machinist for like 10 years, and he just started his own gunsmithing business, and he's been in business for about probably 12 to 13 years. And I apprenticed under both of those guys for a year under each. So I did basically a 2 year apprenticeship under two separate guys because I wanted more knowledge, and I knew that this guy could give me this much knowledge, and I knew that this guy could give me this much knowledge. And honestly, I can still pick up my phone to this day and call either one of them If I'm having trouble with something and there will be like, if it's something I've never experienced, like let's say making an ear on a Mauser breech action semi-auto 8 millimeter. I don't. I doubt that exists, but let's just hypothetically say that it does exist. Um, they would walk me through it with them standing there saying, "All right, this is what you need to do, and this is how we're going to do it," and just break it down to that simple, stupid text to where I can understand it and do it at the same time. But I also know that if I'm going to make a mistake, I would rather make a mistake with somebody there that can say, "This is where you made your mistake. Now redo it." You know what I mean?
Yeah, because having to figure out, especially when you don't have any knowledge, having to try to figure out where you screwed up sucks. Um,
Exactly.
and I agree. I mean, I am not a machinist in any way. Up at the shop at my mom and dad's house, there is a mill, there is a lathe. I do play around on those. I can make a screw, for example, and or a bolt, I should say, and and I can thread barrels, and I can do some minor things. But I've built several Form One suppressors, and in the process of that, the machinist gunsmith buddy I'm talking about got him to help. I mean, there's nothing in the law with a Form One that says you can't have somebody help you. Um, and so, um, yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. There's been a lot of times it's like, oops, okay, something's, I don't know where I screwed up in the process here, Um,
Exactly.
and usually he could just look at it real quick and go, oh, okay, it's this, change this, loosen this, tighten this over here up, tweak this, turn this 2000, you're done. I'm like, okay, you know and not only explain how I screwed up, but how to fix it,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing
and
that I
why
like about
I need to fix it, right? Like this is how you screwed up, this is how you fix it, and this is why you're doing this.
100%. I agree. Like that's so one of them, if I'm having problems with a shotgun, I'll pick up the phone and I'll call him because he is like one of the best shotgun makers and things like that in the United States. And the other one is when I'm having an issue with a semi-auto or a bolt action, like an old style bolt action, not so much a newer style bolt action, but just like an older one, like a Mosin or a Lee Enfield or a Mauser, like how David's question is here. Um, when I'm having questions with some of those, or even like an old M1 Grand, those guys they know their stuff, especially when it comes to these older things. Like my 250 Savage that I restored. Um, my second, the second guy I apprenticed under, I went to him with it because the breech was completely, well, the action was completely seized shut with rust, and the barrel was completely pitted and everything. And when I took it to him, I was like, where do I need to start first? Give me a direction on where I need to start first. Because it was my very first restoration job. And he he walked me through it, and now I'm confident in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
So
100%. Yeah, yeah.
so we're here on David's question. Of all these old rifles, which has a better style? The Mauser, the Lee Enfield, or the Mosin Nagant? And I kind of feel like that's subjective based on what somebody prefers.
It's true. I mean, I've got a tendency to jump to Mauser just without thinking on it too hard. You know what I mean?
See, I have
Um,
the tendency to jump to the Mosin because I really like the Mosin.
right, right. It seems like the versatility on the Mauser. I don't know, it seems like the
That's fair.
versatility on the Mauser action is more, and so I think that's why I jumped that direction. But yeah, I mean, 100%. Like it goes back to anytime you're trying to identify the quote unquote best or whatever. It's like, okay, what is your criteria? Because like
Yeah, it's all subjective, man. Like
that's like
everybody
saying
gets that.
who's the best sports ball player. Okay, what sport? Okay. Once we've identified that basketball, okay, cool. What era? Right? Like
Yeah,
what position? Like we could take it down. So generalizations are tough, and so that's where it comes into play. Um, with being specific, and I'm not certainly not picking on Mike. I'm just using this as the opportunity to for people out there. I know people get skittish about asking questions. They don't want to look stupid. So first of all, understand there's not any stupid questions, right? Like if you don't know something, ask. Um, what I would advise you to do though as well is think about your question a little bit before you ask it. And
Exactly.
think about, am I asking a specific enough question to get the answer that I need, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes you can't do that. Let's just be honest. Like sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and so it requires you to ask a fairly broad question and have that person go, well, what are you doing? Well, what are your goals? And then you go, oh, this, and this. And then they can give you a more specific answer after that, right? They help you, they walk you down. But that's similar to what you were talking about with with getting the advice and everything else from those more experienced machinists or engineers.
Yeah, and Mike brings up a great point here, with being a mechanic for 25 years. And like he obviously understands tolerances, pressures, and things like that if he's built engines, transmissions, drivetrains, and things like that. But you're dealing with a large area versus something, I don't know, average size of an action is like 2 inches by 6 inches at most. So I mean, then you
Yeah,
start talking about chamber and
well, I'm mechanic. I was an ASC certified mechanic in many areas. I never finished out the whole master mechanic thing, but I have worked on big diesel rigs, all the way down to geo metros and things like that. So I kind of get where Mike's coming from. Um, what I would say is even though you're a mechanic, I mean, you've got people are different. And
Mhm,
I've always been wired to where I can like when I was 3 or 4 years old, I mean, there's stories of me taking apart the toaster or me taking apart the TV or me taking apart this, right?
mhm,
And I was always curious of like how it worked.
mhm,
But I was also, and my dad, this is genetic, right? A lot of this we're talking about, the ability to be a handyman or the ability to mechanic or the ability to machine or the ability, being an engineer. There's a certain amount of that I think that is predisposed, like genetic. It's like coded into your DNA. Um, and I'm not saying you can't ever be successful as that field. I'm just saying some people are going to be better than others. Let's take playing the guitar, for example. I play the
mhm,
guitar and I suck. I've got
mhm,
zero natural talent at it or anything else, right? But there are other people that are given a guitar when they're 4 years old, and they're just shredding the thing by the time they're six. Well, they've got some type of predisposition. There's no other way to explain that. Yes, work ethic and practice and education and things like that go a long way, right? But there's got to be predisposition there. And that's what makes us all individuals and every human that's ever existed so unique. I've seen a thing where um, in the genetic code for humans, the possibility outside of obviously an embryo splitting and getting twins, right? The possibility of a human getting the same, having two families having a child that has the same exact genetic code, like the the number's mind boggling. It's like a 10 with like 30 zeros behind it, like 10 to the 30th power or some kind of crap is the odds
mhm.
for that, right? Well, that tells us we're unique, right? And
Exactly.
we're unique in a lot of different ways. And so
Exactly.
one way I'm unique, and like I said, I think it's genetic code, and I think part of it comes from my dad because he's similar in that way, and also my grandfather was that way. It's we can go back, and actually my grandfather, even on my mother's side, was that way. So I may have got a double dip of it, but I've always been able since a very early age to like take something apart and just look at it. And like I don't know what that part is, right? Like I don't know what you call that, but I can kind of tell that this works this over here and then it goes to that. And then this has to do something. So this probably does whatever. And then it goes to this. So this part's the one that's got to be bad, right? And
Yeah.
I replaced that part, the thing works. And like I was fixing stuff literally at 5 and 6 years old. I was fixing things, right? I was able to be able to look at that and kind of just look everything over and go, okay, this is how this thing functions. This is how it works. And ever since I've fixed TVs and countless numbers of things. I never went to a single day of TV repair school, but
Yeah.
I've been able to fix televisions and just all kinds of stuff and it's funky because I don't know what that part's called, but I can unsolder it or whatever and get a magnifying glass and get some numbers off and punch that into the internet. It's like, oh, okay, this is the, whatever, some
Well,
kind of diode or something, right? Um,
well,
yeah.
it's just like when I fixed my refrigerator last year. My refrigerator took a dump on me last year,
Mhm.
and I completely tore the motor and the cooling element and everything completely apart. Like in the middle of my kitchen, I had everything torn apart.
Right.
I had no idea what I was doing, but I was able to figure it out and resoldered all the wires and everything, and it started working. And
Yeah.
it's worked ever since. Knock on
Yeah.
wood.
Yeah.
Um,
The beauty is that the principles, it's kind of like physics in a way, right? Like there are certain principles of the universe, right? It's
yeah,
just the way that things work. And no matter what it is, they all work the same way. It's these principles apply, right? And it's the same way when you're talking about whether it's a car, whether it's a firearm, whether it's a refrigerator, right? There's certain basics that thing has to work a certain way. So,
hmm,
if you know the basics of how that thing works, then it's just a matter of having the parts spread out, opening it up,
exactly.
taking a look at it and going, okay, I know this is what does this particular function that's required, and I know this is, and somehow this has to communicate with that, and this part's not working. So obviously the communication's broken somewhere. Okay, is it a relay? Is it a loose wire? Is it, is that part just completely dead and not capable of receiving the information, right? And
Exactly.
that's where testing equipment, multimeters, and whatever it might be, get certain gauges and different things. If you're talking about compression, let's say on an engine, certain gauges and other things come into play, and having the right tools, right, to be able to properly diagnose. And if you're
Absolutely, man.
and if you're doing it professionally, you got to have a lot more tools. And I'm sure Mike is out there. I mean, I was a mechanic one time and had no telling how many tens of thousands of dollars of tools I've got. Now, if I'm working on anything, I'm probably using a $10 socket set from Harbor Freight. I'll be honest with you, right?
Well, one of my
So
best friends,
the
he's
the
a,
the type of tools you're going to use is just dependent upon what you're doing, right?
yep, I agree. I agree 100%. Like one of my really good friends, he's a semi truck mechanic, auto diesel semi truck mechanic. And him and I have talked about tools, and he's like, I've got tools that have cost $20 all the way up to $5,000 and $7,000. And I'm like, geez Louise, man. So, David's got an interesting question, and then we'll answer this and we'll head on out of here. I don't want to keep you all night.
You're fine, man.
So David says, anyone here missed the 10 gauge? Um,
Browning still
Ron
makes
says he's always wanted one. Um,
And there may be others that make them, but I know for a fact Browning still makes I believe it's the BPS
they
engine.
do. It's just crazy expensive.
Yeah, they're what, probably 700 or 800 bucks, easy.
I think they're over 1,000 now. I'm not for sure.
Wow, wow.
Don't hold me to that 100%.
Yeah, I don't own a 10 gauge. I'm actually, the several trips to the largest gun show in the world, the Wanamaker Tulsa Arms Show. I've been on the lookout for the Marlin Super Goose, which is a bolt action 10 gauge. I've got the Goose, the 12 gauge version. Just would really like to have that Super Goose to go with it. I've got a press, I've got holes, I've got wads, I've got pretty much everything to load for 10 gauge here. I bought a bunch of presses years and years ago. I'm a big fan of mech presses for the shotgun stuff, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
The little Lee load alls. I mean, for if you're not doing a lot of huge quantity and all that, cool. But the older mech stuff that's still got metallic parts,
Hmm.
those things are rock solid, and a lot of times you can find those on the secondary market like super cheap. Mine are probably from the '70s, to be honest with you. What's cool is Mech still sells parts for those, so keep that in mind. If you're out there looking at a Mech shotgun press and maybe it's missing a part or two, like you can still get those from Mech, even if it's from the '70s. I know I've done it. But anyway, I'd picked up a couple of presses, and one of them was a 10 gauge, and I've got it all whipped into shape. I can load 10 gauge. I just don't own one, unfortunately, yet.
You
Yet,
know,
anyway.
one round that I miss the most out of anything, it is the 8 gauge. I don't know if you've ever shot an 8 gauge. They were generally in like
Hmm. Yep.
blunderbusters.
Yeah.
Um, they're so much fun to shoot. But now that I'm getting older and all the knee surgeries and stuff that I've had, like my body just hurts. So like I don't mean to sound like a pansy, but I'm kind of recoil sensitive now.
Yeah.
You know
Eight's
what I
pretty
mean?
tough. And what made it bad about the eight is, most of those are break action. I mean,
Yeah,
the ones. I mean, if you're talking about modern break actions, we're talking about modern over and unders and stuff like that. Typically, they'll have some type of recoil mitigation system built into the
yeah.
stock. It's the nicer sporting shotguns do anyway. But yeah, back in the day, man, whew, those eights, even this like a single barrel eight, and it's a long piece of metal with a long piece of wood, and there ain't no cushion. So, um, yeah, I hear you. I feel it later. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
You know, I am not recoil sensitive, and I am not afraid to jump behind something and pull the trigger. Um, as far as the recoil standpoint goes, anyway.
I mean,
If
I'll
if
shoot it.
something looks like it's falling apart and it's questionable, it's liable to blow up in my face. Yeah, I'm hesitant at that point. But as far as recoil goes, I'm not that hesitant to jump on it and pull the trigger.
I mean,
Um,
I'll shoot it. Like, don't get me
but
wrong. I'll shoot something with heavy recoil. I won't shoot it a whole lot. Like my 338 Win Mag. I'm okay shooting that like
yeah,
once or twice here and there, but I don't like it because it just beats me to death. Um,
yeah, yeah. No,
and
I hear you.
they,
See, I don't feel that. For whatever reason, I could sit down. Probably the biggest. I mean, outside of my 50, and that's a bad example because so that's one of these, myths about a 50 that a 50, oh man, that 50 will, break your shoulder or whatever. And it's like with the big huge with first of all with all the weight that the thing's got, and then second of all um with the big huge sharp end brake on the front, and everything.
yeah,
I mean, my Armalite 50 is a freaking pussycat, man. It's 12 gauge, birdshot load recoil or something. Now the pressure off of it is like a bomb went off. Don't get me wrong. The pressure is freaking enormous. The pressure wave and everything off of it, but the actual felt recoil, not that much. Um, I
maybe
would say
also.
probably my 300 Weatherby Magnum, right? Is
Hmm.
probably the worst rifle that I've got, and I can run a box or two through it and not think really much about it. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, an hour or two later, I'm thinking about it for sure because it's like, oh, what did I do? It doesn't affect me at first. It's a delayed thing. And it's just for me, it's the excitement of shooting, it's the concentration of I'm not paying attention. I don't care about the recoil. I'm paying attention to my fundamentals and getting rounds on target, and that's my goal. And I'm just not focusing on that aspect is a lot of it. But yeah, later on when I'm just sitting around and my shoulder, I've got to take Advil or Aleve or something, um, and go take a shower and you got a big bruise and everything else, then you start thinking about it.
Yeah. So you can Kaze over here is writing a song, I think. He says he owns a musket for home defense. what the founding fathers intended for ruffians to break into my house. What the devil, as I grab a powdered wig and a Kentucky rifle, blow a golf ball size hole through the first man, draw my pistol on the second man, miss him entirely because Smoothbore nails the neighbor's dog. Have a resort to the cannon mounted on the top of the stairs, loaded with grape shot. Tally ho, lads. Grape shot shreds two men. The sound of extra shrapnel sets off car alarms. Fixed bayonet, charge the last terrified, and waiting on the police to arrive since triangular bayonet wounds are impossible to stitch up, as the founding fathers intended, and Vanessa Kitty has jumped in here.
That would get it done. Not very humane, but would get it done.
This is why I love this chat. Everybody's so random in here. But so we've been going almost 2 hours now, so I'll let you tell everybody who you are, where they can find you, and what you got planned next, and then we will head on out of here.
So the best way to check things out, obviously clovertac on here on the YouTubes. And then if you follow, you want to get in touch with me, whatever the case may be, either through clovertac.com, the website, there's a social media carousel there. You can hit all the podcast platforms up, all the social media platforms, other things, and communicate, message, and do whatever. You can also email there. So, I would say do that if you're not, primarily, YouTube centric or whatever. And YouTube is a horrible way to communicate with people. It's not really a social media platform, even though they try with their community tab. I'm appreciative of that community tab. It's a great way to engage with folks out there. It's not really a social media platform or a great way to communicate. So utilize those other means. I guess I would like to pimp out here the sweepstakes, the Ghost and Clover sweepstakes. If nobody has heard about that or is aware of that, we've got 200 stickers. These are special stickers. They're limited edition, meaning there's only 200. Once all 200 are sold, we've got a $1,600 prize package, including a handgun, ammunition, bag, cleaning supplies, a whole bunch of stuff there. And then we've got also a runner-up prize. And so each one of those tickets gets you an entry into that, basically. Go over to clovertac.com/shot2023. And you can look at all the prize package and all of that. It's way too much to talk about. We'd spend another hour probably talking about it, but go check that out. Might make for a good Christmas, assuming we can get all 200 sold by then. And we're well over the halfway point. There's less than half of those left. So if you're going to get in, now's the time.
One other thing that I want to pimp out too. You have one of these, and so do I. And these are a great stocking stuffer. I keep getting all tongue twisted.
Yeah,
hit up Ron Wayne and get your exclusive Ron Wayne patches. He has them for sale. Hit up Ron. You just got yours in too, didn't you?
I did. And if you don't already have a patch panel, that's a good one to start with, and create you a patch panel. I remember years ago, I was more of a sticker guy. I would always grab the stickers and I would stick them on things. And, I don't even remember how many SHOT shows and events I went to be able to pick up loads of patches and didn't really even do it. But I slowly came around and man, I love the patch game now. It's awesome. I do a lot of trading with people. I pick them up at obviously shows and other things. And, I'll trade with people when we go to shows, and the whole patch thing is it's just cool.
I agree. So you hit up Ron Wayne, order you a patch from him. So he says he needs to order one of the exclusive Ron Wayne coasters. But thank you, Bolo. Thanks for the birthday wishes. But But all right, guys. Well, we are going to get out of here. We've been going for almost 2 hours. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for all the birthday wishes that everybody has sent me. I appreciate it. And I will catch you guys next time on the next episode of the Bending Ballistics podcast. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for everything. See ya.